Seek Yahweh while he is to be found. Call on him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to Yahweh, who has compassion on him, and to our Almighty, our Allah, for he pardons much. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares Yahweh. For as the Shamayim are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain comes down and the snow from the Shamayim, and do not return there, but water the earth and make it bring forth and bud, and give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so is my word that goes forth from my mouth. It does not return to me empty, but shall do what I please, and shall certainly accomplish what I sent it for. Isaiah chapter 55, verses 7 through 11. Have you ever encountered something that seemed impossible? At the Art of Woman podcast, we share testimonies of those who have. From divine healings to answered prayers, you'll hear stories of how Yahweh turns trials into triumphs. This isn't just another podcast. It's a community of followers of the way, sisters, seeking the impossible through faith. Stay tuned, because today's episode might just be the encouragement you need. All esteem be to the Most High Yah. Aquasia Valoria, I do want to thank you first and foremost for being willing to come here to share this space, this time with me. I really am grateful, and I'm just looking forward to whatever it is that the Most High has for us to communicate about and share with other sisters. So, welcome. And again, I do want to say thank you and all esteem be to the Most High Yah for sharing this time.
Hallelujah. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. You are very, very welcome. So, would you please just start out by introducing yourself? And because I love to ask sisters all the time, in relation to their Hebrew name, maybe a little bit about how they got it, how things kind of, came about. What is the meaning of it? What is the character that's being, molded, into you, whenever it comes to your name. So, if you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Shalom, everyone. My name is Valoria. A lot of you all may, or some of you all may know me as Simka. How the name came about was there was an elder who was way back when we first came into this truth. Elder Ashir, and he would pray over people and receive a name from the Most High to be given for that person. And I remember my mother and I asked my mother, who has passed away now, her was Udea,
Mm.
which means ember, and mine was Simka, which meant joy. Of course, through life, I had people had stopped calling me Simka, or had stopped being called Simka. So in recent years, when I it was actually Valoria was a misspelling. Um,
Mm.
from my my uncle had given me a email address, and sometimes people will say, of course, before I got my name Simka, I would say Valerie Ya. You put Ya at the end of the name
Right.
to let people know who you are. But it was a misspelling, and it was Valoria. And I kind of looked at it for a moment, and then I remembered what they said about Gideon, you know, you mighty man of valor. And
Yes.
I thought to myself, maybe in this season, it's not just Simca, but the Simca of Yah is your strength. So almost as if bravery and valor are going hand in hand. And in this season, I have to be that strong and courageous. I have to be that mighty person of valor. So that's why I kept it to Valoria rather than um, almost as a path getting back to Simca, if that makes sense.
Yes. Wow. And that is really something. Because, and like I said, I thank you so much for sharing that, because like I said, there are different things that the Most High tends to do within each one of our lives. Some of us, I've seen where some people, they may not necessarily, be walking in that, or they're in the process of whatever this is that the Most High is developing in them. And there's so much about Yah that we just don't know. So
Right.
we're all in our own unique ways, these expressions of so much of what he is, and that's still not it. So that's wow. So that's kind of like maybe like a transition. Would you say that, as far as like,
Yeah.
starting out with like one as far as your life is concerned and being a follower of the way, just like a to express even a transition for you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's a perfect way of saying it. Thank you.
All esteem be to Yah. All esteem be to Yah. So can you share a little bit about your walk with the Most High? What led you into becoming a follower of the way?
Most definitely. It started with my dad. And I just call him my dad, but he's my stepdad, but I call him just dad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he came into the truth first. He found about the name of the Most High, the name of Yahushua HaMashiach,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping the Sabbath day and the feast days. We learned about that first. Or I should
Okay.
say, my dad learned about that first. At that time, this was during the '09 recession. So he had lost his job. Mama was diagnosed with cancer for the first time. I
Mm-hmm.
went from an all private school to a charter school. It was a whole season of change.
Wow.
And during those, excuse me, I'm telling a story. During those
Understood.
years, so sorry, that's my
You're
youngest.
fine. Very much understood.
Um, and I think it was about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he was out of work for about 5 years or so. I maybe give or take a few years. But that's when he came into the name and into Yahusha's name and into keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. And of course, when he told us, Mom and I were not hearing it. We were not hearing it at that
Right.
time. But around 2012, we heard it.
Wow.
2012, we kept it right. Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was right before I had gone to college there. And I think what the first Passover, I was watching a lesson. It was from Watchmen and DeBoer, and they were talking about, observing the Passover, doing your best to, commemorate it, keep it in remembrance.
Yes.
And at that time, I was trying to go out for a sorority.
Mm.
And I kid you not, there was such a sharp pain in my hip. I've only experienced it another time, and that was after the birth of one of my children. There, that sciatica. I'm a college student, and I'm talking about sciatica. You
Right.
know, and you're walking, to and from class and all those sorts of things. And my roommate, she could attest that I would just be crying in bed because that sciatic was in so much pain. And every time I would attempt to join the sorority, that sciatic would
Mm.
flare up. And I would be like, I can't do it this season. I can't do it this semester. I can't do it that semester.
Wow.
Until literally it was Passover season. And they were saying, do your best to observe the Passover, all those sorts of things. And something in my head just clicked. I can't serve two masters.
Mm. Hello, yeah.
Yeah, all praise to Yahuwah. And I literally, I remember I had called her up, the person who I was, trying to, usually you have a person that you go through to, try to get into the sorority, what have you. And I just sat it down and said, I can't do this. And at that meeting, she had changed from the person because I knew her before the sorority, before she joined. Uh-huh. Yeah, I knew her before she joined the sorority. And then after. And at this meeting, she was carrying an owl, talking about some spirit animal. and some
Mm,
madness. And I'm like, huh? I was like, what are you talking about? But I just kept
right.
on telling him, like, no, um, I can't do this. And, they were talking about, like, oh, are you pregnant or are you this or are you that? And if anyone knows me, and you could ask literally anyone, I was not boys have cooties, but was, not really social in terms of like, ooh, party. I was like the
Right.
oddball out. So they're like, everyone like, Valerie's not into all that stuff. Yeah. So I looked at her, I'm like, what do you mean? Am I pregnant? Am I this? Am I that? I'm like, no, I just can't do this. I don't serve who you serve.
Right.
Can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, that's when it clicked. That's when it clicked. And that same season, yeah, that's when it clicked. That's my oldest son. He should be asleep at the moment.
Right.
Um, but that's when it just clicked.
Wow. That's something because the many different ways that yeah actually protects us from stuff. There's some people that he actually allows to go in and experience it. But the different ways where he actually protects us from certain things. And here it is. There's certain things that we may feel like, okay, like I've felt like, okay, well, I would like to do this. I remember when I went to college and I wanted to join one, you know,
Right,
um, and they're not necessarily in relation to what had happened with you, but there just seemed to always be something that would pop up to where I wasn't able to do it.
right,
And so I
exactly.
never ever officially ended up doing it, but I got upset because I mean, at first I was upset. I was like, oh my gosh, like I really, because you think that it's the thing, back then. Um,
Right.
but I really seriously wanted to be involved and join a sorority and stuff. And so I'm just sitting here like, wow. And then all of these different things that had happened, and I'm like, okay, well, forget it. Guess it must not be meant. But then later on down the road, end up seeing, like, it clicked for you. So all the seemed be to the most high is kind of like, wait a minute, I can't do this. This right here is not meant. The fact that you sit there and said, okay, I know that I'm not able to serve two masters. I need to make a choice. And the one that I
Right.
serve is letting me know that it need not be the other one,
Ah.
So it's like, no, I'm trying to get your attention, you know. Um, but wow, that's really something.
Yeah, God, hallelujah. Oh,
Yes.
definitely.
All esteem be to the Most High, the way that He protects us. Halal, yeah. So, how was it as far as you becoming, like whenever you finally did, as far as saying okay, because I know you had mentioned, it was first introduced to your dad, and then
Yeah,
you and your mom wasn't having it, but then later on, you did, all the seen be to the Most High, everything's a transition, a little
right.
process, we come in there. Um, and so whenever you first did, how was it like for you, like when you're like, okay, because it sounds like that your experience when your dad had came into it, you was really young, you know,
Yes,
and then as you got older here, you was in college, so still young.
right.
So what were, or were there still yet some challenges that you were facing, even as you were coming into, okay, yeah, this is who we are, these are the scriptures that I am needing to follow, this is my almighty, and the Most High was letting you know these things. How was it for you, at this young age, with that transition?
Okay. Well, for the first part, like I said, we transitioned first, or dad transitioned first, and it was the name first. So you could even ask, well, I mean, she's not here, but you could ask my mama, and of course, I'm pretty sure she told dad, but if she
Hmm.
was here, you could ask her. I would go up to, there was a church that we'd go to, and I would just go up to the pastor and start asking questions.
Right.
He started running away.
Mm,
It was that because it was like a big like mega church, and it was like white guy, No, I mean, no offense to any Gentiles. I'm not trying to be rude.
right.
It was just yeah, he wasn't of us, but he seemed kind.
Right.
I had never had a problem with him. So I was like, well, Dad says this. I'll ask him. I went up and tried to ask him. But it was, I think after the first time, I even forget what exactly I asked him, but after the first time, he had started like seeing me come down because again, this is like a mega tree, so you can see people, from afar off. And sure enough, he would quickly, be
Wow.
rushed back to the back. I'm like, all right. um, good to know. For college, and eventually, like I said, we all came around. I think the biggest thing, one thing was for Mama. She had, Dad explain why, because at the time, he didn't do birthdays, so I think that was my 16th or 17th birthday. So he was telling me, why he didn't do it. And for the for the pagan days, he wouldn't go, but we tried to go. Still, and I remember the last one, both Mom and I, because then myself, I was saying, I don't think we should do this anymore. But hallelujah, Mom was saying the same thing within herself, and she's like, yeah, I don't think we should do this anymore. Because
Right.
at that time I was like, oh man, I got to make a stand against my mama.
Mm.
But Mama was saying the same thing too. So
Praise yeah.
that worked out there. So we were all in it by the time I went to college. And, but we didn't know who we were. And for college, I remember because I had gone into school to be an astrophysics major because I liked studying the stars. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't good at math because I was trying to be an astronomer, which is less mathy than astrophysics. But they didn't have an astronomy program. And not astrology with the constellations, but just the studying of
Understood. Yeah.
right, all those sorts of things. So I was like, oh, I'd like to do that. And I kid you not, almost the same, because this was again the same time with the sciatica, but this was like almost like a mental sciatica. No matter how hard I tried, I think I took math 1A, that's the calculus for science and math engineers.
Mm-hmm.
I could not pass that class. I think I tried 4 times. And I'm on scholarship, and I'm like, I can't waste any more time
Right.
for this. And it was the summertime of, I think sophomore, one of those. And I'm like, this is the last time I can take this, Miss Math class, because you have to have this math class in order to do, the higher up for the major. And I was like, Yahuwah, at the same time as I'm, walking in math class, I remember I said, teach me about you. I'm like, teach me your science. Teach me your, definition of where we come from. Teach me your version of it, because I'm like, you made it. Every
Right.
time I look up, I get happy and I start singing, not just singing to the stars, like, worship the sun, moon, and stars, but I'm like, these are so beautiful. How in the world did the Most High make these things? I always, be like, whoa, like wondering, like, they make you want to sing praises, in short.
Mm.
Not praises to them, but praises to the one who was
Yeah.
able to make
Right.
them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how in the world, did you do that? And when you see like this, I mean, what NASA shows you, which we all know now, the pictures of the supernovas and all those things, like, how did he do that? And I remember praying that prayer, and I kid you not, I did not pass that class because that class, I was like, all I have to do is pass this class. I'll get I can apply for the scholarship for NASA and go in, as an intern, right? We'll
Right.
be set. We'll be good. I think I was 1 or 2 points off from the final. And
Wow.
I went and I tried to not fight the professor, but like take up the notes, like,
One or
look,
2 points now? Can I do a bonus?
exactly. So like, and he was a visiting professor. He wasn't even a
Yeah.
professor from the school. I was
Right.
like, look, sir, this is what you taught. This is what I did. This is right. I didn't get it. And I was like,
Mm.
why? Literally, I felt the whole world was, lost. I had been saying since I was like in third grade, I'm gonna be an astronomer. Lo and behold, last chance to pass the math class,
Mm.
fail, world's shattered. Who knows what's gonna happen? Have no backup major, don't have time to do because this is the end of sophomore year. So you got junior and senior year, you got 2 years to be able to do something with your
Right.
life for college. And I didn't know what to do. That's when I got into American Studies because American Studies, you're able to craft your major. So I went and I took things from, of course, African American history, took things from American history that I had known, questions that I wanted to ask in terms of the food and policies and all these sorts of things. And that's actually how I came up with the book that I had. I turned the thesis that I wrote into the book. And what was it? The beginning, the beginning of junior year was when I found out. I think I had landed on Elder Watchman and Dodo DeBoer's page
Right.
and the White It Out series. I think I
Yes.
sent it to Dad and I was like, I know we're calling on his name and everything. Is there a possibility that we might be the actual people of the book? And I remember he said, I'm looking into that too. And I'm like, oh snap.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that was the next semester. Like I said before, that was, Passover season, cancer, two masters, and it just kind of took off from there. Started watching the
Wow.
White Out series. You're like, well, all right, we're the people of the book. And literally, you start learning your whoist definition for history. And I'm still to this day still learning. Binyana, I cannot hear myself talk. Um, his what his science is.
Yes.
I'm still learning that. You don't even understand how deep it goes. I was like, I didn't know how deep it went. The heaven is his throne, the earth is his footstool. Wait, it's a footstool? Wait, it has foundations? Four foundations? Wait,
Mm.
there's a stone? What is this? There's a firmament? I mean, I thought it was just, the space.
Right.
What do
Round ball.
you Right, exactly. I'm like, what is this? Uh,
Yeah.
I was like, goodness gracious alive. And you start learning all these things, and you're like, oh, NASA's it was made by Nazis. Like, oh, snap. Oh, goodness gracious. No wonder I wasn't allowed to go that way.
Yeah, that is really something how the things that you had desired to do, how he just kept protecting you from them.
Exactly.
Regardless of how it may have hurt, your feelings, in certain ways and some more than others, it's like he protected you from that, because, and then, like I said before, some people he will allow to experience certain things,
Exactly.
and then they get in it, and then whatever that experience is what it is. But for some, whatever reason was specifically set apart for you, Yah did not let you get involved in it at all, period, and protected you from it, you know. So
Praise yeah.
that's, yeah, all esteem be to the Most High. And it's interesting that the first feast also, like you're saying, is Passover, because I believe that whenever we had became followers of the way, Passover was the very first feast that we actually ended up learning about.
Right.
As soon as we came, it was Passover as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Something, I mean, not something about Passover, but that Passover season is a special time.
Yes, yes. All esteem be to the Most High. Yeah. So, because I have a couple of questions, but could you tell us a little bit more as far as your book, though? Like, because you
Oh,
said that that's a little bit about a time frame in which you had written the book. Yeah. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your book?
not at all. It's called Sustainability in the African American Farm, redirecting the commodities of freedom back to the Black community. At the time, Mama was again, she was diagnosed, at that time, she was diagnosed with cancer again. And I was trying to figure out what's going on, you know. Um, and you start to, there's a whole rabbit hole in terms of again, at that time, finding out that everything was poison. The cloth you wear, poison. The
Mm,
fabric that you sit on your couch, poison. Um,
mm.
the baby powder that you put on yourself, poison. The things that you cook with, poison. Poison, 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 poison. And all these things somehow cause cancer. And I'm just like, I think someone's trying to kill us. you
Right.
know, just like and when you start to think that you're like, okay, we need our own gardens, we need our own medical centers, we need our own this, and we need our own that, and then of course, I knew we had our own before, but at this time, because of the major I was in, I was allowed to see how much we had of our own.
Mm,
We had our own hospital. We had our own medical centers. We had our own farm. We had our own businesses. We had our own this. We had our own that. We had everything was our own. In fact, in the book, it talks about how in South Carolina, Mississippi, and Louisiana, we had more farms than than our white counterparts.
wow.
There was what we owned 10 million acres of
Wow.
farm right after slavery. And that is
Mm,
documented by Booker T. Washington. And he said we own that much land. Still not as much land as, of course, our white counterparts in general. But in those three states, we outnumbered them. So
wow.
then my question was, what happened? If we
Right.
had all this land, if we had our own stuff, if we were keeping to ourselves, if we could heal our own sick, and not just heal our own sick well. There was a one slave that was able to heal um, rattlesnake bites and won his freedom by doing so.
Mm,
We had our own doctors, our own nurses. We had the farm owners, again, because this is around the area time of the Great Depression, were lending out loans to the white people in the community. The whites were coming to the black farmland owners, Joe Jackson, Mrs. Reardon, family, and getting loans from them in order to help them get through the Great Depression. If we had all this stuff, what happened? Was my question.
mm.
And when you see, there's a book called The Negro Problem, which again, I didn't know all this. The This is a white lady talking about the white backlash that would take place if we did anything in terms of economics or political empowerment. And the greatest economic or political empowerment was literally to be outside of it, do our own thing, engage with our own,
Right.
buy with ourselves, do our own stuff. Though it may seem isolated, like we're not making a big change. That's the biggest change that we could ever do because now we're letting you know, because again, this is right after slavery. They already lost that whole entire economic, free labor pool. And not only did they lose the free labor pool, but the free labor pool is not engaging in their system. The free labor pool is engaging in themselves.
Mm,
That's and they destroyed that problem. They bombed the cities, literally bombed them. They did something called Fleckner report, or Fletcher report. And that's when they shut down all the medical centers. They went and, of course, you already know when they went and took away all of the black land. They did a very systematic removal of any form of economic self-sufficient endeavor that we had at that time. Completely wiped us out. It literally proves we went out one way against them. Not even trying to be against them because we were trying to be separated from them. And they attacked us seven ways. The Fletcher report, taking the land, lynching. What else did they do? What didn't they do? They literally did more than bombing.
right.
Um, Meat factories and making sure that we couldn't get our items that way. A bunch of stuff that came against our people. And that was at that point where I'm like, okay, this is without, and because again, I said at the very end of the book, saying that the only way that we could be sustained is through Yahuwah. And I specifically said that at the end of the book. That being said, throughout the book, I literally laid it out to let you know we did it already. When everyone says we need our own stuff, we did it already. We need to buy with our own. We did it already. We
Mm.
need to, boycott. We did it already. Anything you can think of that you're telling the Black community to do, we did it already and failed. And if we failed, then what didn't we do?
Mm.
What didn't we do? And that's, of course, we know now. Follow y'all's laws, statutes, and commandments.
Right.
Period.
Exactly. Exactly. That's, yeah, exactly. Wow. I'm out to, you said the Negro problem?
Yeah, that's a book that I forget the name of the white lady who wrote it,
Hmm.
but it's called The Negro Problem, and it's stated in I use it as a reference in my book to showcase
Okay.
that literally she quotes saying any form of political or economic endeavor that our people do, of course, you said like the Negroes do,
Hmm.
um, will be faced with a white backlash.
Mm. Wow. That is so if anybody wants to get your book or purchase your book, where would they get purchase your book from?
It could be on Lulu in terms of a paperback, but the cheapest one is on Amazon. It's an ebook, $2.99. It's again African sustainability and the African American farm. Um, you'll see a picture of a man kind of just looking straight faced, in black and white. The author should be Valerie Grimes. And that's a shout out to my grandmother, the Grimes name. So yes.
Okay, so I'll take what I'll do is put the like maybe the link to it in the description box so that way for those that are interested, I know that I sure am, that we can, be able to purchase that, to support as
Oh
well
yeah.
as to get the information because there's, there's some things I'm sure that are there that I did not know about. So I
Most
really appreciate
definitely.
that. So, okay, so a question that I do have is like, what is like a situation or a challenge in your life that you actually face that just seemed impossible? Because there's, like these situations where like we could end up in whatever, and then we're looking at it and we're just not seeing that way out. What is it that has like been something in your life to where the Most High has, other than these other things, because you're clearly showing that His hand, has continued, to be on you and He's protected you from things. Has there been a situation where, yeah, He did allow you to experience something, but then even though it looked like there may have not been a way out of that, that He came in and showed you that there was?
If there was a way out, I mean,
I know there's probably a lot of things, but for real, we got multiple testimonies. But yeah, just
look,
yes, ma'am.
I'm telling you. It's like, oh, which one?
Right.
But most definitely, one thing about Yahuwah is there was, and just to kind of keep with the theme is that and I know it may seem small, but this is kind of definitely a shout out to anyone who's still in the schooling system. I'm out of it now. But at that time, it seemed like I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life. Um, that I'm asking, what is my purpose here? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Um, where do I fit? Um, and even sometimes, even now, I'll still ask that question. But when you feel like the chips are kind of stacked against you and you don't know what to do next, who knows what he's doing?
Mm-hmm. Always.
He always does. Exactly, he always does. Um, I at the time I didn't know what the American studies major, because it wasn't about American studies. It's about crafting your own question regarding the American experience. I didn't know that that would be a good tool to prove Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter.
Mm.
Did everything already. Literally. If that book doesn't prove anything else, we did it already. And we did it well. So
Right.
even regardless of what people say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, we did that. And we did it well. So well that it scared everyone else.
Right.
But at the end of all that, you still have life, what comes after this? At that time, my the roommate that I had been with uh all of my college career, she was graduating on time. She was still in her science major, and of course I'm not. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? Um, and I found out later because Mama didn't tell me right away that she had cancer the second time. Um, and when I found out, of course I was upset with Mama. I'm like, why are you trying to hide this from me? She, I didn't want to, interrupt your schooling. And I'm like, what do you do after that? I found myself going back home. Um, and at the time, I'm like, oh, okay, we said we had to commute to school, back and forth. But during that time, and there was ups and downs, and I didn't, in hindsight, you're like, I could have been of service a lot better. But Yah knows what he was doing. It was like, this
Mm-hmm.
is like, I didn't know it was my last few years with my mother, but
Mm-hmm.
this is the last few years with your mother. Don't worry about your job. Don't worry about, where you fit in. This time is the last bit that you're going to see her before I call her. Engage in that. And
Wow.
again, it was that was very hard there because like, you don't from going, everyone else has all these jobs right after, right out of school. You're like, oh, I'm going to go work for here. I'm going to work
Right.
for this. Here's, Valerie's like, okay, I had to change my major halfway through. I don't know really exactly where I fit in. Um, I don't, have all these things lined up. And I have to stay an extra semester in order to finish this thesis. But it's like, don't worry about it. When that was finished, she passed 3 years after that. So that was definitely you who was like, don't Matthew 6:33. Don't worry. Seek his kingdom first and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. I'm still learning that. It's not that you
Yes.
don't work, it's not that you don't do, it's not that you don't, better yourself. No. Do what his righteousness is at first. Seek what he wants you to do. The things that you need to live, you'll have. You'll have them. And I'm still learning that.
Yes. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So, yeah, I noticed that you like, especially, Matthew 6:33. I mean, that's something to really stand on, because I was thinking about that actually today
Huh.
because I'm like, yeah, you know, you tell us according to your word that before we even open up our mouth, you know what it is that we need,
Exactly.
and yet I find myself sometimes still asking for, and I'm not saying that he doesn't want us to ask for anything. I'm saying in the process of the asking, I feel like sometimes like I need to explain it a little further.
Revitalize your smile with the Tonic Guard, the mouthwash that redefines freshness. Infused with pure herbal extracts like peppermint and clove, it combats bacteria, reduces gum inflammation, and leaves your breath irresistibly minty. No burn, just a burst of natural goodness. Upgrade your oral health care today and join the wave of fresh smiles. Try a Tonic Guard today.
Right.
or something. I don't
Exactly.
know what it is. But then I stop myself and I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm like, because your word expresses that before we even open up our mouth, that you know what it is that we need. And as a matter of fact, it's even more than that.
Huh.
Because before the world even was, he already had everything in mind. He had you in mind. He
Huh.
had every single thing that your life was going to be about. He had
Exactly.
all of this in mind, and he actually has every single one of these answers.
Right.
And so in spite of the things that we go through, everything that we face, as long as we are, not just only it's in the process of submitting to his will, but knowing that we are totally and completely dependent upon him, he gives us all of these different answers. And I like how, like, you've been expressing his involvement in your life, um like a father, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, well,
Um,
and my daughter needs my help, my assistance over here, so I'm gonna allow this thing to sit there and happen so she doesn't move in that direction. Okay, now I see that she needs some help over here, so I'm gonna do these things so she doesn't move in that direction you know
uh,
and then at the same time, giving you time to spend with your mom prior to her passing. And my mom, she's still here. I know not what that experience is, and like during that time frame, and knowing, because I noticed that you had said that it was like the second time, that she had let you know that she had cancer. Um and so what was it like? How did not to necessarily you don't have to if you don't feel up to it, but just kind of like, can you express like how Yah helped you during that time? Even though I know and I believe that death is not something that anybody can really be prepared for,
right.
regardless of how soon that is coming for an individual. You know, when it happens though, like it's never something that anybody can prepare for. But how did Yah comfort you, during that time, being that he set aside some time to make sure that you had that instead of being really overly busy right after getting out of college and then just focusing on all of this stuff and then missing out on that and having regrets?
Most definitely. During that time, you're okay. Um, it was I found out the seriousness, like I said, that was end of junior year. So junior year was a whole wave of stuff happening. Um, and when it was stage 4, because it was a ovarian cancer the first time. Then the next one was stage 4, because it metastasized everywhere. Um, and at first, things seemed okay. Mama, she's always fighting. We were doing herbal, remedies, all these sorts of things. Because he was doing the chemo for a little bit, but they got the chemo in a cavity in her hand, and they had to give her an antidote in
Mm.
order to, clear it up. And she's like, at that time, she's like, oh, calm down, calm down, calm down. At that time, she was like, no, we're not doing that no more. She said, how in the world are you getting the cavity in my hand and not in the vein where, where it's supposed to go?
Mm.
Uh, and then she was, I think I remember the main thing was, and this was a little bit prior, I think this was the beginning of senior year or end of senior year. She was doing this, she called it strawberry water. Strawberries. Oh, for anyone who wants to lose weight, water, alkaline water, a cup of strawberries, some cinnamon, lime water, and just drinking it down. Because she was convinced that, oh, it was the weight. She gets the weight off, if she gets the weight off, that it would help. It would help if she got the weight off. And I remember I had looked at her and I was like, "You're so thin." I didn't say it like in those words to her
Right.
because you don't
Right.
want to scare, so But she's like, "Look at like I dropped the weight off," and I was thinking to myself, "That was too fast."
Right.
You know how you're like, that's too fast. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and again, we had about 3 years after that. That was too fast. Um, time. Um, but then I think the lowest she got was 70 pounds. Um, here, there you go, sweetie. And she went to go visit her sister. Took Amtrak to visit her sister in Nebraska, my aunt. And my auntie was there. She was very helpful. But anyone who's been a caretaker knows it's very hard.
Right.
Um, and I was like, Yahuwah, it seems like everything I'm doing is failing. Like my love isn't reaching her. Um, um, because she would get, upset or agitated or frustrated. She's in a lot of pain. Of course, I get it. I'm trying to hug her and she goes, "Ow, Valerie, that hurts." Or, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, "What's going on?" I'm trying to pour into you, but it's like it's not reaching you.
Right.
That was my thing. I remember I would have to pray, like, how you like the out crying prayer, but it was like the secret out crying prayer because you weren't trying to cry in front of her, so that way you don't upset
Mm-hmm.
someone, and then
Yes.
you gotta go code switch and be like, all's well, let me get this, let me do this, that, and the third. And I remember my aunt was, helping with the smoothies, all those sorts of things, because she wanted to take that time to be with her. And that was like in the fall. Um, and after that visit, came back, came back home, and then we took her to the hospital because when she came back from Auntie, she was feeling all right. I remember she had a cheeseburger. I was like, yes, not and like it was one of those good healthy, like not healthy cheese, as healthy as a cheeseburger could be. What I'm trying to say is her appetite was
Yeah.
coming back. And
Right.
I was happy to see that and I think even to this day, if you ask me in terms of certain health things, I always say keep fat on you. Kind of like opposite of what people usually say.
Mm-hmm.
Keep a good 5 pounds on you that you're willing to lose. Like just like that. Whether it's, you have a bad cold when you can't eat something, if you have a bad cold for about 2 weeks, you're gonna drop at least 4 pounds real
Right.
easy. If you have braces and you need to get braces, anyone who's had those braces tightened and you can't eat solid foods and you have to drink through the straw, your smoothies or what have you, you'll drop 5 pounds like that. So probably because of that experience of seeing what it's like to not have that backup kind of weight on you and what happens if you drop something, drop that weight real quick, how fast things can go down south. Even to this day, maybe that's why I probably still say that to this day. Like just keep, you know, 5 pounds, not in your gut area because you don't want any, fat on your gut, but like I don't know, in your thigh or something. I don't know.
Right. We can push it in a certain area.
Right. Just somewhere that is not too bad where fat's supposed to be, not, not on
Understood.
liver, not, on your organs, but
Mm-hmm.
somewhere where it can be stored.
Right.
Just keep it on you. Because I was happy to see her appetite back, and December was all right. And I remember January, they said she has 3 months.
Mm.
And um, I had to almost rebuke the doctor, because it was a Asian doctor. I said, we need to talk outside. Because I'm like, you're not just whether that is the case or not, you need to have a better bedside manner rather than just bluntly saying that in front of my mother, who's
Right.
coming to, who usually isn't coming to the hospital because the hospital's, death or what have you. To just go up and say, well, she only has, 3 months or so. I'm like, you need to fix that. And we need to talk outside. We need to talk outside. And it was during that time there was a lot of transitions, and that's another testimony for another day. But there's a lot of transitions at that moment in life.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this. It wasn't during that 3 years, I think before it got really serious. And this is when I say there's a lot of things that happen in the spiritual realm that you may not take notice of. And one of those was I remember I was, and this is not to gloat in terms of prayer and fasting. I feel like you need to be led by Yahuwah when you pray and fast. Because if you're just praying and fasting, for just whatever or for no reason, you're nothing but, of the Pharisees and Sadducees if you're just doing it just to say that you're doing it,
Right.
even if you're just saying it that you're doing it to yourself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like you may not be broadcasting it to someone else, but at least in your head, you're like, well, yeah, I fasted, I fast. In your head, you'll be like, I fast this, that, and third. He sees your heart is basically doing the same thing. But I remember there was a time I was on my way to sleep. And I felt like there was two people talking in front, like behind my head. I wasn't scared. It wasn't nothing scary, but just like a conversation. And it was almost as if as I'm going to sleep, I was like, they're having a conversation, something that I need to know about. So like, how like even like when you were smaller and you doze off to sleep and you hear your parents having a conversation, like, I need to hear what they're saying, and you can't. It was just like that. I was trying to listen. What are they saying? And it was so funny because it felt like I recognized that they knew that I was trying to listen. And they were like, I was like, all right, go to sleep. And I was like going to sleep. And when that happened, a whole new phase of life was beginning to happen. I'm not sure if people have read The Shepherd of Hermas, but it was like a whole new wave of life. And again, that's a testimony for another day. It was beginning to happen. It was going from knowledge to wisdom, from reading it to application. And this not just application of keep the feast days, not just application of, know his name, say his name. No. Know his name. Meditate on his name. Know his word. What does it say? Live it. Breathe it. Do it. Follow it. May it be a part of you, be embedded into you. This is not a game, in short. It's changing. And it was almost as if, and even now sometimes I think, as if there was like the changing of the guard, whatever those messengers or Malachim or whatever was like, it's time for the next stage, brother. It was almost as if maybe that was the conversation. It is time to level her up.
Mm.
And I didn't know I was going to be living in the last days. I'm sorry, but you see, chips in the hand and in the brain. I didn't know there was chips that were going in the hand ever since 5 years back. I didn't know Elon Musk started putting chips in the brain 2 years ago. This is the time and season that we're living in. I have to level up. If I don't level up, then my children, who are the next generation, if they're facing literally the man of sin face to face, I need to be able to train them up, just like the person in Maccabee said, and keep your eyes on the prize. This is nothing. We need to get home. We got to get home. Right. And even if I have to face off with the man of sin, we don't know, but we are in that time. And when I found out, I was doing Bible study with my auntie, and I was like, wait, There's a chip in the hand already that's been already happening in Switzerland for the past 5 years, and Elon Musk did just a second chip in the brain for some dude 2 years ago. That's the season we're living in. Everyone knows it's the end of days, but when you start saying putting chips in hands and putting chips in heads, that's a whole nother level of end of days.
Right.
That's we ain't got no time. There is no time. There is no going back. There is no second chances. There is no second guessing. It was almost if back at that time it was level her up. She needs to level up. And that was, again, that was before Mama had gotten really, really bad. So during that, like I said, those 3 months, it was like there was a whole bunch of stuff that was happening. But it was, yes, who allowed me the time to be with her. But again, it was level up. Because this is nothing. You think the loss of your mother is something? No. No. 10,000 will fall at your side, and 1,000 will fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand. You think one person passing is something. Watch 10,000 die. If you're lucky, you can watch. If you're lucky. I'm trying to protect your mother. That may be what it was. I'm trying to protect this. She passed during 2019, right before COVID. If she was in the hospital during COVID, they could have given her the COVID shot. Who knows what would have happened? Like, you don't know who it does. But I will say this. We can't be soft. And it sounds harsh. But we don't have time nor the luxury for that. In my opinion.
Yeah. So I know that we don't we're I know we short on time, but just like really quick, just ending on what you just got through from saying, what would you recommend for, because you was talking about how Yah had taken you from reading to application, knowledge to wisdom. He said that the focus needed to be on you really understanding who he was with whatever level that he wanted to reveal that to you, and he wanted you to level up. And it sounds like it's like like that's at that time, but then there's other levels, to be honest about it. Like there's other ways in which it is that he possibly could be transitioning you even more. So, or likely is. I don't think it's possible. I think it is possible, but I'm just saying instead of using the word possible, he likely is doing that. So, because he says from what glory to glory, is esteem to esteem, so definitely it's something that's being done. So, what would you recommend for those that may not necessarily be in that place to where they're not doing that? And so you're saying, okay, where would you recommend that they start? In other words,
meditation, and not just because I was doing not lazy meditation like that, but I call it. I'm still working on that because I'll just when you hear the word of Yah, it's not when I say lazy meditation. I mean, okay, belief comes by hearing and hearing by the word of Yah. Meditating on it is a whole new level. What is you're confirming it, right?
Right.
That's what it's supposed to be. So there was things where I'm like, okay, and there was a verse. There's a verse it's in John 17. It's Yahushua's prayer when he prayed it in Yohanan 17 11. It says, and I am no more. Hey, I'm reading. And I am no more in the world, but these are in the world. And I come to you, set apart, Father. Guard them in your name, which you have given me, so that they might be one as we are. I'm still meditating on that. I'm still trying to get it. Because I feel like we get it. We're unstoppable. I don't know what it is in that, but to be guarded by his name, which he gave Yahusha. What is the names that Yahuwah gave Yahusha? How was Yahusha able to then use those names to guard us? And he'll talk about, I think in 22, and the esteem which you gave me, I have given them, so that they might be one as we are. And I feel like, to be as will, if we know that, I feel like we're unstoppable. But I don't know what it is. That makes sense. And I know it may seem strange, but I would ask or say, meditate on something that you think you know. You think you know. Like, how it says, make sure your anchor holds a solid rock or grips a solid rock.
Yes.
And even in Revelation, it's like, hold on fast to what you know. What do you think you know? Think about it. And keep thinking about it. And let him, whatever it is that you says, this is your daily bread for like the next 3 years.
Right.
3 years? Why 3 years? Because this little verse is about to change in different aspects of your life for the next 3 years. I don't know. But I'm saying is even not this whole verse. It's just that part. Guard them in your name, which you have given me, so that they might be one as we are. And and this thing, I have to think about that. Guard me and my children in the name which you have given me. We know when Isaiah is like wonderful counselor, mighty El, ruler of Shalom, eternal Father. That's what it says specifically in that verse. What do those mean? I would say meditate on what you think you know. Meditate on what you think you know. Because even if you go into the Hebrew and read it in the Hebrew, everyone knows that each Hebrew letter means its own thing. So then if you break it down to each Hebrew letter, and then you have to break down each Hebrew letter to the Hebrew letters that make up that Hebrew letter, it's almost like continuous. It's never ending. It's like a literal cycle.
Like our Father.
Like our Father. Does meditate on what you think you know, because in this season, if you're confronted with the man of sin, just stop thinking about, not stop thinking about, Yahuwah can deliver us. That being said, just like the Hebrew boys, and if he does not, meditate on what you think you know, because you have to be faithful unto death. That's the season we're in.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I want to close today's episode with Isaiah chapter 41, verses 8, 9, and 10. And it reads, "But you, Yasharal, are my servant, Yaakov, whom I have chosen, the descendants of Abraham, whom I love, whom I have strengthened from the ends of the earth, and called from its farthest parts, and said to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not look around, for I am your Almighty. I am your strength. I am your power. I am your Eloah. I shall strengthen you. I shall also help you. I shall also uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness." Hallelujah. Remember, no matter what you are facing, the Most High Yah can turn the impossible into something possible. If you were encouraged, inspired, edified, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, and be a part of our growing community. We're here every week to bring you more testimonies, teachings, songs, whatever it is that the set-apart spirit of the Most High Yah brings that will strengthen your faith. And until next time, stay encouraged, and walk in the authority of Yahweh Shah Mashiach. Shalom.